All of the areas of concrete, both around the houses and down the driveway to the road, were in real need of a thorough clean. The only way to do this, without using chemicals that could have an adverse effect on the wildlife and the stream, which is where all the runoff goes to, is to use a water blaster. Due to the south-facing aspect of our property, there are quite extensive parts of the concrete, particularly down the driveway, that do not receive any sun for several months of the year. Some of those parts don't receive any direct sun at all at any time of the year. As a consequence, they are an ideal breeding ground for moss, which makes them dangerously slippery, particularly during the winter. From memory, the last time I did this job was more than 10 years ago, so it's long overdue. When I did last do it, it took me almost a whole week using a water blaster I borrowed from a friend. Between then and now, I have bought a 6.5 horsepower water blaster, which is adequate for most of our needs. To undertake this job this time, I decided I need better equipment more suited to the job. Hence what you are seeing now. Hello everybody. So today is, well, actually several days, this week I'm water blasting or pressure washing for those of you on the other side of the Pacific, the driveway. Yesterday, first thing, I used my water blaster, which is 6.5 horsepower and does about 2900 psi. Even after all these years, I still think of pressure and psi, probably because I don't use it a lot, and so I've never really learnt to use the bar or kilopascals. So yesterday morning I used my water blaster to do all of this wall because it was very green and scungy, and I have to say some of the moss is quite pretty close up. I may even include a picture of it, not from here but elsewhere in the video. And then in the afternoon I went into our place in Hastings and did some water blasting there as well of pathways, because they were getting quite green and yucky, and that's not ideal when well, it's not ideal at all, but it's particularly not ideal when you have people staying there. And then this morning I went into town and I picked up the big water blaster and this thing that's called a floor cleaner, which has rotating jets underneath it, and I would have to say that it's probably more effective by a factor of 10. You just need a much bigger water blaster to drive it, obviously, and so that's why I've hired this one, and this is a 13 horsepower one. I don't know what PSI it does. It'll be something similar, but it'll be a bigger volume of water, and so it has a water tank with it as well. But so far the water pressure or the water volume that I've got coming out of the tap is more than enough to keep up with it. So, but that will be handy, as I still have all the way down the driveway to know. And for those of you that don't know, our driveway is probably, I don't know, 130 meters long, 3 meters wide, and reasonably steep in places. So in order to get some fortification, I'm going to go and have some lunch, and then I will come back and finish this bit off down here, do all the rest of this and get that done, which will take a little while because down in that corner down there, as you can probably tell, it's quite green and scungy down there, so that'll just take a bit more work. You will have noticed that I'm going over each part at least twice, 2 passes, and that's just because it hasn't been done for years and years and years. In fact, some of it may never have been done, and the concrete was laid in 93, 94, so I have done some parts of it before, but not all of it. So I will see you after lunch. With a time lapse, it's always interesting to see the sun come and go on a day like this. As you may have guessed, the scratching in the previous part of the video that you could hear while I was talking and walking was my plastic pants. It always makes me smile when I think about plastic pants, as when cloth nappies were a thing on small children, i.e. when I was that age, parents would sometimes put elasticized plastic pants over the top of the cloth nappy to contain any leakage. With the advent of disposable nappies, which incorporate an outer plastic layer, those kind of plastic pants are now part of history. And so I have a different sort of plastic pants now, thankfully. Having now used the big water blaster with the wand on it, rather than on the floor cleaner, I think I may have been incorrect to say that it produces about the same water pressure. I think it's probably several notches up in the 2900 psi that my water blaster does. The reason I say that is that it removes the grime much more effectively than mine, but doesn't seem to use a lot more water, which suggests that it's using a similar amount of water but pushing it a lot harder. In the overall scheme of getting the job done, the amount of water we use isn't a financial consideration, as our water supply is not metered and we do not have to pay a separate water rate. Thankfully, within where we live, water isn't a huge issue. So I carried on through the afternoon to get this bit done. Good morning, everybody. I was just looking up in the Kanuka tree here, and I see the jolly, I think it's the ivy, is all getting up into it, so I will have to get in and chop that out, otherwise it will kill the Kanuka. Mind you, that Kanuka is a self-seeded one and may not be able to stay there anyway, but in the meantime we'll give it its best chance. So today is day 3 of cleaning the driveway. Well, not day 3 of the driveway, but it's day 3 on the water blaster. And so I started about 9 this morning, it's now about 11, and I've done this morning from basically just in front of my car here all the way down to where you can see the quote-unquote floor cleaner down here. So I am about to move the car, which has the water blaster on the back of it, down to this position, and then I can carry on down the rest of the driveway. I think, where are we? 1, 2, 3. I'm not quite, well, yeah, no, I'm not I'm not halfway done what I need to do today, but that's okay. It is only 11 o'clock. It's nice to hear the tuies while the water blaster's not running, because you can't hear them when it is. I will carry on. So my plan of attack is I do the retaining wall and the gutter and all the joins and cracks and things with the wand first, and I also do down this edge, and then I come back and do the rest of it with the floor cleaner. Hopefully by the time I've finished we won't have too much zebra effect. Not zebra, well I suppose it could be a zebra, tiger, something, from if I haven't quite cleaned it enough. Anyway, we will see. That's a quick update. I'll come back to you later when it's done. As I was cleaning this part of the drive, my mind went back more than 50 years to the 3 years I was at high school. Back then, my dad held the contract for all the cleaning and caretaking at the local primary school. We lived in a small town called Welsford, about 80 kilometres north of Auckland. Population of the town was around 1,200, but it served a big rural community and area. The primary school was year 1 to 8, as there was no intermediate or middle school in that area. To earn my keep, I used to do quite a bit of lawn mowing and cleaning for Dad at the school, and I got paid for doing that. The reason my mind went back to that time was using the floor cleaner to clean the concrete. Reminded me of the considerable number of days I spent using a commercial floor cleaner / polisher to clean and then polish all the lino floors at the school. Machines had a big rotating brush under them with probably about a 1.5 horsepower electric motor on the top. They did have a set of wheels at the rear that you used for moving them around when you weren't actually using them. But when you were using it, the wheels were flicked up out of the way and you manipulated the polisher via the fixed handle. So you'd put the handle up or down, depending on whether you wanted it to go to left or right. And then you tilted the polisher either to the left or to the right to make it go backwards or forwards. It was quite easy once you got the hang of it. But when someone who hadn't previously used one turned it on for the first time, the immediate results were sometimes amusing. Well, at least for those watching on. The brush was used with water and chemicals to clean the floor, and then a couple of different grades of nylon matte type material between the brush and the floor to polish the floor, once the dirt had been mopped up and the polish had been applied. From memory, we did this across the whole school during the summer break. You had to move all the furniture, of course, to one side of the room and do that half and then move it all back over the other side to finish it off. I remember our little dog, our little fox terrier called Monty, and he would come racing into the room, and of course with the polished floor his claws didn't get much traction and he'd slide sideways sometimes into the wall. It was also at this time that I learnt to use the old offset farm haul tractor and the tractor mower to mow the fields. The tractor was a bit of a beast to manoeuvre, but it got the job done. The body of the tractor was offset on the rear axle so that one wheel was right next to you and the other one was far away. But it meant that it was great for going backwards and forwards across the steepish banks because it was less inclined, no pun intended, to tip over. In hindsight, I can appreciate that I learned quite a lot through those years. It is now 10 to 2 in the afternoon. I stopped about 10 to 1, maybe 1 o'clock, somewhere around there. And mainly because I needed some lunch and also I was past a point really. And so I've got to down there, I think you can see the mark. So I'm hoping I've got less than a third to go. I think I have got less than a third to go, and I won't bother doing a time lapse of this, but the last one probably got a bit smudgy as it went along, as the GoPro got a bit of a dosing, but that's okay. So let's get this finished. Good morning all. As you can probably tell from the sky behind me, it's a bit more cloudy today, but I did get all of the driveway cleaning finished yesterday, which was great, but it was getting pretty late by the time I was finished and delivered the water blaster and floor cleaner back to the higher place. So I didn't bother trying to video last night. So I must say it is a wonderful thing to have it all done. It was a mammoth job. So we start kind of down here really, and then work our way up, and all of this area across here. And I even did that little path while I was there, which it also looks a lot better than it did. And all of this down here, we did get some, I don't know whether you can see it, yes you can, a bit of a stripy effect here obviously. I didn't, I should have gone forward and back rather than across, and that's what's caused that issue, but I can, if I'm so inclined, I can deal with that with our water blaster if I need to. Some of this is a bit stripy, but it's still a lot better than it was and much safer than it was before. And I got all the way down. I'm not going to walk all the way down, but yes, I got all the way down to the road and then cleaned up the mess at the bottom of the drive, because a lot of it ended up down there obviously. So that's a job off the list, which is great. There are plenty more jobs. This is the other side of that retaining wall that I'm working on. So it's back to that job now. Not today though. I have other things I need to do today. And Kathy and I have decided that I'm not going to use the old palings back on that fence. We're going to switch to a horizontal trellis kind of setup. So I will sort out any of those palings I am going to keep and get rid of the others, and then I'll need to get some of the horizontal boards to make into trellis. I won't do that immediately. I'll wait until I've actually got the wall finished. And whether you can, well you will, I know, be able to hear the whack size in the tree behind me. Enough of that. Heading to town this morning to do a couple of jobs in there, so I'll see you next time.